The base has dropped on a cold at Metro Atlanta area and also a cold Statesboro area. Soccer down here live across the state of Georgia this morning, March 28th. You guys can listen wherever you want to, but we're in separate places. I'm in Atlanta in the usual spot. John is in Statesboro. He was on hand for the groundbreaking ceremony of South Georgia Tormenta's new stadium that will be ready for next season in USL League One. He's also going to be on hand for the inaugural match of USL League One Friday night as the Greenville Triumph come to town. What's the morning vibe in Statesboro?
Well, I mean, yesterday it was interesting. I think that every hardware store in an 8-county radius is now trying to figure out where they can find shovels. Because what Tormenta wanted to do yesterday was have what they referred to as bring your own shovel, and created their own trench where the stadium is going to be constructed. And at the end of the ceremony where they announced that the stadium was in fact happening, where you had rather large deconstruction vehicles with Tormenta FC flags on them and everybody with shovels, you probably had another 250 to 300 people who brought shovels on their own to help make that ceremonial first dig. And, you know, I was telling you briefly before we came on the air, the Statesboro had a good day yesterday. And when you see that the vision of folks like friend of the show, Darren Van Tassel, and not just him, but Statesboro and the Chamber of Commerce and the mayor and Bullock County and all the surrounding counties. I mean, this isn't going to be just a facility for Tormenta. It's going to be for Georgia Southern's men's and women's soccer programs. They're looking at it to be multi-use and multi-purpose, where you have an attached commercial element. And they announced that Publix is coming back to Statesboro after more than a decade of not being here. And they're looking to have entertainment in the facility, you know, concerts and things like that. So the vibe is one of excitement. They know that they've got a whole lot of work to do. They've got, they've set down a gauntlet of a year to get everything squared away where the stadium is concerned. And I'm looking forward to seeing, and obviously we'll probably get into it tomorrow as well, the beginning of USL League One with, you know, Greenville and the Triumph, and we've caught up with them as well and their growth. And there's going to be that rivalry there that we've seen with the Southern Conference with Furman and Georgia Southern. So it's a built-in rivalry there as well. But, you know, Statesboro had a good day yesterday, and they're looking to have another one tomorrow.
It's been pretty cool, you know, looking at this. You go to statesboroherald.com to check this out, and Publix buying in to this whole complex, you know, and that's, I think, the thing that always jumped out to me about this when we would have conversations with Darren Van Tassel and everything that's going on at Tormenta. So, I mean, this club started as a PDL club, amateur college players coming in the summer to play. Immediately developed a very strong foundation for what it could be. USL League One gets off the ground. Tormenta is the first club announced. And then the talk about the stadium. And it's like, okay, wait a minute. This is beyond even where we could see where it was headed. And you're talking about not just plopping down a stadium. That's not easy, but that's not as difficult as what's happening here. This is a stadium. This is almost like a second downtown for Statesboro. Yep. And to get a company like Publix on board as an anchor for this whole complex is really important for the overall success of the project. They are all intertwined. And what was so cool to me was to hear from Darren about how, you know, it's not a retail complex that, okay, they're able to piggyback a soccer stadium onto. The whole thing is being driven by professional soccer in Statesboro, Georgia. That's what's driving all of this development for Statesboro, for the county, for the area around. That's huge. And that shows the potential that can be done when people, I think, look outside the box a little bit and look at things in a little bit different way. It's very cool to see, and I think it's a model that hopefully other cities, other, large towns, other small cities are looking at for something they can do with professional soccer in their neck of the woods.
And, to see how really Tormenta is integrating itself in the town, in the region, with the local university, just seeing how it honestly, to me, is a very three-dimensional approach to both sport and business and development and expansion and integration all at once. And to have all of these different ideas about how to make yourself a part of the community, as they've done on the pitch and in the community over the last couple of years, but then take this next step. And it's a big step. It's a hell of a step. And the optimism and the get after itness, to create a verb or to create a word, and just the go to it attitude that everybody has here, using soccer as that fulcrum. For me, it's cool to see, and I'm looking forward to seeing what other cities / towns / areas are going to see what's going on here in Statesboro and take it with them and sit there and say, well, we can do that too. And to have that same kind of go-to-itness and the same get-after-itness to make sure that you're not just growing your town, your area. You're growing really the fabric of what you can be using soccer as that element.
According to the Statesboro Herald's Mike Anthony, this is a little bit more about the whole project, so you get a sense of what it's going to look like. Stadium will hold over 5,000 people. The area will also include retail space, a separate building that will contain 4 locker rooms, team offices, training facilities, a branch of Optum Orthopedics, and team space for Georgia Southern men's and women's programs, which will also play at the stadium. This is a big, big deal, and again, soccer's part of it. A lot of the talk yesterday as well was you had the trophy on hand, and Van Tassel made it clear that, okay, you're building a stadium, you're planting roots, you're doing all these things. The business is good. Things are looking great. But the commitment is to create a championship team. And the idea is for that trophy to be back at the end of the season in 2019 in USL League One.
And Darren is more than happy to keep the trophy in Statesboro, to kind of keep an eye on it, through the season itself.
Yeah, I don't think that's how it works, though.
I know. If Stephen, you want to kind of leave this behind, we'll kind of keep an eye on it for you. But when you talk to the players are finding Statesboro as a home. And the players are saying, I can't envision myself being in another place right now other than Statesboro because of the familial atmosphere. There are rules that have been put out by Darren's wife, Nitra, who is one of the co-owners. You have Nitra's rules. To give you an example, one of the rules that is part of this is that when you go in for a team meal, there's a box at the door, and your cell phone goes in that box. You are not allowed to take your cell phone with you to your seat as you're having part of your team meal. And since this is Thursday, and my days kind of run together, if I'm not mistaken, since this is Thursday, we may still be in right now, or it may have just wrapped up. Thursdays at the end of breakfast, you have Kangaroo Court. And if there is something that breaks one of Nitra's rules, whether it's the cell phone coming into a team meal, late to an appearance, something like that, it's a $5 Kangaroo Court fine. Every Thursday at the end of breakfast, it is a closed-door meeting for Kangaroo Court, and there's a 4-person leadership council involving Tormenta veterans. And you can discuss whether or not you wish to challenge your fine in Kangaroo Court. You can have a teammate come up and be your legal counsel. And if you win, okay, you keep your $5. If you lose, your fine is doubled. But to have these kinds of things for a franchise heading into League One, to have this kind of familial atmosphere, I think also speaks to what's being built down here in Statesboro.
Yeah, it's been very cool to watch this grow from scratch. I think there is a lot for USL League One, even USL Championship teams to keep an eye on. And I love the connections with the academy. Darren said he's interested in having a women's team at some point. He's keeping an eye on the progress with, especially the lower divisions of women's professional soccer and what that could turn into. So we're going to be talking about Tormenta a lot, not just because they're nearby, but because they're a huge story in American soccer. And I think it's easy to talk about the big things. I mean, obviously Atlanta United, obviously FC Cincinnati, LAFC, Nashville, Miami coming in, MLS expansion. All those things are very important. USL Championship, very important. This is the lifeblood of it for me, is that now kids in Statesboro and the surrounding counties, if you play high school ball there, you can go and watch a professional match and say, well, I can do that. I want to be that. What does it take to be there? If you're a kid and you're a ball boy for one of those games, you're like, wow, that's a player I want to be. That's Josh Phelps. I want to be Josh Phelps. I want to play like him. That's the game changer. Like professional soccer players don't all have to come from areas around MLS teams. They can come from Statesboro. That's important. And it's going to take clubs like this creating a sustainable model. And that's what this whole stadium deal is. It's a sustainable model. It's not building a white elephant that is going to be tough to sustain. That was the idea from day one, was to create something that you have the retail component. I think you're going to have a hotel component. You're going to have all of these things that factor into it that will help it be sustainable as it all grows together. That's how you have to think to make something last. And I love the roots being put down. I think it's going to be a blueprint. I really think it can be that blueprint. And hopefully others are paying attention. And hopefully for, getting people's attention, the team is good on the field as well. And you get that side of it, because we all know how important that element of it is as well. We'll start getting answers to that Friday night as John Harkes' Greenville Triumph come to town and get ready for game one. USL League One, it's such a weird league to predict because nobody played at this level last year. There wasn't this level last year. So you're guessing as to, okay, the team's coming up from the old PDL, USL League 2. How are they going to look moving up? Players who are making that jump as professional rookies, are they going to be ready for this? What about teams that are dropping down, like a Richmond Kickers, like a Toronto FC2? How are they going to look in this league? Then you have brand new teams like Chattanooga and Greenville. What are their squads going to look like? It's really interesting because it is the great unknown right now.
And having all of these teams coming at you from all these different directions and levels of experience. I've seen all these articles that have been posted saying, okay, well, so-and-so is going to win the league because. Okay, great. But for me, I'm looking at all of this. This is a blank slate. And that's the fun part for me in all of this is the newness of it, the ideas of all of these different ownership groups and all these different franchises who have these different approaches coming in and throwing themselves into this one league that is starting from scratch, whose games start tomorrow. And I know that all of us are, a little bit opening day for baseball, which really already happened in Japan. We know what's going on opening day of baseball. It's something that's been around for a very long time. Opening day for USL League One, this is a blank slate, and this is something that can be molded and worked and encouraged in a lot of different places. And the USL, we've seen it with USL Championship going into, using air quotes again, non-traditional markets, and seeing the successes this season where soccer is going. You now have in League One, you have Tucson, you have Madison, you have, OCB, you've got Toronto FC2, you've got Richmond Kickers. So you have different versions of histories coming together here in this new venture, and no one's been here before. So everyone is putting on their pith helmets and grabbing their machetes and trying to figure out how they're going to get through the forest. And we're going to, have our own programming about the USL League One as well as the season goes. But seeing everybody putting on the gear and going on safari right out of the blocks, for me, that's the fun part in all of this.
Yeah, we'll have the USL League 1 and 10 later today to get you set for the opening weekend of the league. We're going to take a break, and we're going to move up a level in the American soccer pyramid. We're going to talk USL Championship next. There's some news out of Charleston that caught a lot of people by surprise, and we'll get you updated on the future of the Charleston Battery's home after this break. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Every hiring manager knows that a company is only as good as the people it's made from. So where do you find the best people? That may surprise you.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
This is talent worth knowing about.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here. March 28th edition. Johns and Statesboro keeping an eye on everything going on with South Georgia Tormenta in the USL League One opener tomorrow night. We'll have Felipe Cardenas on in our next segment to start looking ahead to Atlanta United and Columbus this weekend, as well as maybe a little bit of U.S. men's national team recap. But right now, some news hit with the Charleston Battery yesterday that I would say that it caught everyone by surprise. I had not heard anything about these rumblings. Andrew Miller and John McDermott over at the Charleston Post and Courier. Headline is Charleston Battery owner to sell pro soccer club's Daniel Island Stadium. And you're like, what? Because we all know MUSC Health Stadium, one of the first soccer-specific stadiums in the United States. Built in 1999. The Battery had been there since 99. The stadium is being sold. The team is not. And this was something that when the sale of the team went down, one part of it that was not really discussed at the time was that a different entity acquired the stadium site. So Tony Baker, founder of Blackballed Inc., He had been the Battery's owner, I think, from day one, if not day one, very soon after day one. He sold the club in 2016. Eric Bowman's B Sports Entertainment bought the club in 2016. And at the same time, according to the Post and Courier article from yesterday, Holland Park acquired the 11-acre stadium site for $8.5 million. So Holland Park LLC holds the lease on the facility. They're close to finalizing a deal to sell MUSC Health Stadium and the surrounding land, including the practice field and offices. This is all according to documents that have been filed with Berkeley County. The buyer is an affiliate of Atlanta-based Holder Properties. So that's going to leave the Battery without a home. And according to the Post and Courier, the Battery is working on a deal to relocate with the hopes of playing next year, because this is going to happen fast, playing the 2020 season at Johnson Haygood Stadium at the Citadel. Now, the Battery, before they moved to Daniel Island, played at Stony Field, which was near the Citadel. I went to a match at Stony Field. It was a pretty cool facility for the A-League at that time. I saw a game there in 97 and 98. So I saw two games there. I think Stony Field now is used for high school sports. There's been a lot of talk, John, about the Battery's attendance, and it hasn't been great lately. It hasn't been great in recent years. Do you think a move back closer to downtown, and exactly how close is this to downtown? I don't remember. Do you think that's going to help Charleston as they try to draw more fans in the stands?
Yeah, I hope so. And I think that when you and I have gone to Daniel Island, and coming into town, it is detached. I mean, there's there's no other way to describe it. And when you're trying to boost attendance, for me, I would say that moving toward downtown, you hope it does help. And when you have a franchise that is as storied as the Battery are, you have the Battery and you have the Richmond Kickers, who have been a part of this footprint since the early 90s. And when you're trying to continue this run of being a part of the American soccer fabric that you have, I mean, right now you look at something like Johnson Haygood, and it is in the west side of Charleston. So it's near it's just off the Clark Parkway. It's on the west side of town, and perhaps doing something like this, bringing it back toward the center of town, can do something to boost attendance. And I know that the owners are disappointed, and I know that fans are disappointed that you're not getting the numbers that you are. You would hope that something like this will draw it back into where you can attract more eyes who may not be able to make it out to Daniel Island for one reason or another, especially if you're on the west side of town where this is going, that west side of Charleston, and working your way back that way. You perhaps get some folks from further down the coast who might be a part of population centers and things like that. But you hope that doing something like this can give you that kind of a chance.
I mean, let's go back to 1997, 1998 when they played at Stony Field. You were drawing less than 2,000 fans a game there. It was 1737 in 97. You drew 1896 in 1998. When you moved out to Daniel Island, it's a new stadium. It was a beautiful stadium when it was built. It's still a beautiful stadium. But yes, you drew 3,500 in 1999. Now, that's year one in the stadium. Last year, your average attendance, as I scroll up, was 2,872. That doesn't match what you see in the stands. And also, when you have events like the Carolina Challenge Cup, little surprised at that not drawing as well as maybe it used to. I think a move could actually end up being a good thing, and you hate to even think that because of how great that stadium is. You know, it is soccer specific. It's a cool place for American soccer history, but is it the best place for the club to be in the long term? I don't know. I'm not sure that it is. It's not working, I think, where it is right now. And could that be because of, you know, the level of play, marketing, ownership, you know, just a crowded sports scene? There's a lot of things that could factor in, but it's not where it needs to be. I think the Battery would agree. You know, the attendance needs to be better. Philip Jordan, listener to the show, wanted to hear our opinion on it and says, as a Charleston local, I think it might help them a lot being closer to downtown. Lately, the crowds on Daniel Island have been pretty bad. I think the Battery do need a spark going forward.
And I think that's the best way to phrase it. They need a spark, and bringing it back toward downtown. I mean, obviously the landscape has changed when it has come to the sport here in the United States over the last 20 years. But I think that when you're Charleston and you're still high 2,000, low 3,000, perhaps a change of venue will help things out. Sit there and new look Battery, new look attitude, however you want to phrase it, you know, when it comes to your marketing for 2020 as you're looking towards something at Johnson Haygood. But they do need something, and you hope that this is it, because the Low Country in Charleston, really, they have that support for the sport, and you want to see the Battery do well because of the history and because of them being the part of the fabric that they are when it comes to Southeast soccer in the Southeast. And so I'm looking at this as being that spark.
So, and just to show you where the second division's grown to, in 1999, that 3,500 attendance was number 5 in the A-League at the time. Now, if you drew 3,500, you would have been in the bottom half to the bottom third of the league in attendance for the USL Championship in 2018. And those numbers are only going to continue to go up when you see what New Mexico United's doing, what Memphis 901 is doing, what El Paso Locomotive is doing. Those numbers are going to continue to go. Birmingham Legion packing out BBVA Compass Field. It's difficult now, and I think the bar has been raised, and we'll see what the Battery can do to try to hit that higher bar. Now, a couple things to keep in mind with the Citadel. Mike Capaccio, the athletic director for the Citadel, said, "We've held some preliminary discussions with the Battery, but nothing has been finalized. We're going to do what's best for the Citadel's athletic program, our student athletes, and our fans." One of those things that they're going to do is they're going to renovate the stadium. And it was originally set to take place after the 2018 football season. It's been pushed back. Now, is the Battery's potential move there part of that? Maybe, if you want to try to connect the dots, it could be. There was going to be some cost to it, and maybe that was another reason it was pushed back, and maybe that's something the Battery can help with. But it's a pretty historic stadium. Have you ever been there, John?
No, I have not been to Johnson Haygood. Seen action from there, have not been there.
Yeah, it's got a great look. I think it could be a great venue for this. I do have a little bit of concern about the width of the field. But if you're going to renovate and that's being factored in, then okay, you can account for that. So very intrigued by this. Very interested in what this could turn into. So keep an eye on Charleston. We'll keep you posted as we hear things as well. We're going to take a break here and get Felipe Cardenas on the line, and we'll get his takes on Atlanta United back in action this weekend in Columbus, Ohio. Get some takes on the U.S. men's national team and the international break as well. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA is a national nonprofit working to transform youth and high school sports so that every child has a positive character-building youth sports experience. PCA provides live and online workshops to train double-goal coaches whose first goal is winning and whose second, more important goal is teaching life lessons through sports. PCA also has workshops for parents and high school student-athletes. For more information, please visit positivecoach.org.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinsky of Apolinsky & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. This cat makes me make art. He's always motivating me to draw pictures of him. He just is motivating artistically. He's my best friend, but a lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
Keyboard Cat, YouTube star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Start yours today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here, March 28th edition. We've hit the lower divisions, and if you guys have any thoughts on a Thursday about the lower divisions, tweet at us at Soccer Down Here. We'll get into those in hour number 2. But right now, let's start looking ahead. We have Felipe Cardenas from The Athletic joining us. How's it going, Felipe?
Hey, man. It's going well. How are you guys?
Doing good. Before we move into MLS and Atlanta United and Columbus, let's start with the U.S. national team. All the takes on the two games and all the differences of the opinions on these two matches. What did you think of Greg Berhalter's first two matches with the European contingent of the national team pool?
Well, I mean, I think there's an identity. It is not completely developed yet, but I think you can see that there's a plan. It's a process. It's a little bit more than just coach speak at this point. I think you can see a team that is, I think you and I have talked about it off the air, Jason. There are a lot of comparisons to how this team is performing, and to how Atlanta United has performed under a new manager as well. You have players that can play this game. I thought at times the U.S. Men's national team looked very almost studious, almost too rigid in this plan and this system that they're in. But they had their moments. There was some good moments against Ecuador, albeit a pretty poor side in Ecuador. And listen, I've followed Bolillo Gomez, the Ecuador coach, for my entire life, I think. And he's a manager that at times can make good teams look really mediocre, and I think that's what he did against the U.S. Men's national team, where he sat back. They were essentially just not looking to attack. He did that with some really good Colombia sides in the 90s. And in Colombia, we don't want to see him near the national team again for that reason. So, so I saw that too, and I think it was a good moment for the U.S. to try to break down a team that's going to do that. Against Chile, I thought a lot of changes. I thought the back for the U.S. was a sore spot, a real weak link, and I think you can start to see who those two central defenders are going to be moving forward. It's going to be Aaron Long and somebody else. It might be John Brooks. It could be someone else. But, the two central defenders, Miazga, who played with him, just dropped his name. The guy, what's his name? Plays in Mexico. Anyway, Omar. There you go. Omar. Yeah, who just, God, he just can't find his form when he comes back to the national team. So I think there were just a lot of players that are being evaluated. And I think Berhalter has been pretty clear that he is evaluating players. That is not the team that's going to, he's going to take to, it might be, some of the players going to Gold Cup, but that's not a 2022 qualifying roster just yet. So that for me is my biggest takeaway, is that, I've said this before, American soccer Twitter, when someone on the U.S. national team does something great or does something that they're supposed to do because they're a professional international player, we tend to just go a little bit overboard. The Zardes tweets during the Chile match were an example of that. He's doing what he's supposed to do. He's there for a reason. Is he going to be the number 9 moving forward? Probably not. But for now, that's what they have. And he did a pretty decent job. After the assist to Pulisic, I didn't see anything special. I just thought he was a guy trying to play as a number 9. Sometimes he was a little bit timid when checking to the ball, and you can't do that at that level. So a lot has to be improved. And I'll say this last thing. This is a 2026 process. I think if this team in their current state goes into World Cup qualifying for 2022, they're in trouble. They are not the big club, as quote, the big country in CONCACAF right now. There are a lot of teams that are trending up, that are at their level or slightly above them. And I think this is a process that's looking towards the 2026 World Cup, when these players are going to be, much more comfortable in a system and playing a certain way than they are now, where it looks like they're just starting a process.
All right, so then let's go to the flip side of things, and the Atlanta United players that we kind of got to see in their appearances in the international break. Obviously, folks are drawn to Miguel naturally, and then Joseph getting the PK squared away. When you saw Atlanta United players out on the international stage, what were your takeaways?
Yeah, I thought some of them performed well, depending on the competitions that they were, being asked to perform in. I think the U20, like Carlton, he's in a U20 type of tournament. Like, he tends to do well there. At this point, his performances at U20s don't surprise me anymore. I think that's kind of his comfort zone. So he needs to get out of that a little bit and perform a little better, against the men. Miles Robinson as well. I thought the U23 group is a good group. It's always a very competitive age group around the world, and I thought they played against some pretty good teams. Egypt, from what I saw, it's a very good team. Egypt is traditionally very good, and they had some very good players in their group that caused a lot of problems for the under 23 U.S. men's national team in the back, and yeah, I think it's good for Miles to have been in those situations where he's coming from essentially being like the team MVP for Atlanta United, and then he's put into a situation where it's a little bit more humbling. You're playing against guys that are playing professionally for a long time, but I think that'll serve him well. Joseph. That was such a big moment for Venezuela against Argentina. It was probably for every single player, including himself, to be part of that victory. I'm sure it meant a lot. And him, really putting that game away with his trademark penalty, putting a goalie like Franco Armani, who for many is one of the best goalkeepers in South America, he just laid him down with that PK. And really just put that game to bed. And he looks like he is in excellent form. I've said this since before the season started. When I saw him in person, we did a quick media scrum with him, and he looks so fit. He looks fast, stronger. I think even in these poor performances from the attacking side of Atlanta United, Joseph has looked really, really quick, and his touch is there. And I think when he goes to Venezuela, he's that guy. I think the pressure is off of him too. So he performed well. Miguel, what can I say? There are a lot of hot takes about Miguel's performances.
Yeah, you think? A few.
Yeah, and listen, I think there are so many players that have done that. Messi did that. Diego Maradona did that in a performance where he came on and he was red carded. Both of them. within minutes of coming on the field. There's a level of adrenaline that us normal folk do not understand that goes into international soccer. And I think Miguel, he's on a high right now. He's proving himself in England. He is the man now for his national team. He's playing in these games mean a lot for both nations. I think Paraguay is in a different and a new process as well. And he wants to set the tone, and he's playing against Mexico, and Mexico is really putting it to him. They were dominating them. He sees Tata on the sideline. And I think the moment got a little bit, got the better of him. And he did what so many soccer players in the history of the sport have done, where they just, for one brief moment, that dark side kind of comes out and he gets caught. And so be it. That's how the sport is played.
So Franco Escobar returned to action over the weekend, played about 60 minutes in USL Championship with Atlanta United 2. Didn't look sharp, but that's to be expected. He looked good physically. How quick do you think Frank de Boer gets him back into the lineup?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's going to be very quick. I don't think they're going to rush him back. And if I did not see his performance, but I trust you. And so if he didn't look sharp, then there isn't, it's unlikely that they're just going to throw him in against Columbus, away from home. But, we've been surprised often with de Boer's, selections, since he started. So it could be. I personally don't think they're at this point where they need to rush him back into the starting lineup. Would it be great? Yeah, because I think we've talked about that need of a true right back. Allows them to potentially play with a back four that I think the entire team would be much more comfortable in. It just allows some of the other versatile players like Julian Gressel to move around and go back to what was working towards the end of last season when Franco, became a key piece, of that right side of the defense. And so, I don't know if he'll be in the 18. Personally, I don't think it's the best idea to rush that type of injury back. And again, I think more time with the twos will probably help, and just getting back in their groove and training. I think that's probably the best way to do it before we just throw him into a big match that's coming up, against Columbus.
So then when you're looking at a starting 11 coming off of an international break with the variants like a Franco Escobar, what are you looking at in a starting 11 if not an 18?
Yeah, that's the question. I think, take a guy like Pity Martinez, I would not be shocked or surprised at all that he doesn't play against Columbus. Maybe he makes the 18, he travels, he's still part of the group, but he may not play. And I think if he doesn't play, that's not any sort of red flag or no alarm should be sounded. I think that he didn't get the rest that a lot of these other players that weren't on international duty got. He's been, since leaving Madrid after that Venezuela game, like obviously he's back in Atlanta. He's been able to probably, decompress and get some fitness in. But is it enough to go a full 90 or even 60 against Columbus? We won't know until we see the 18. I don't think he's someone that they need to really depend on and put so much pressure and weight on if they're not there yet. It's not. I think they still have enough depth, to trot some other guys out there. But Frank de Boer said, before the break, and he said it several times, that this team will start to perform better, and even just the system. Everyone wants to talk about the system, but he was really adamant that this team will start to perform better when they have fresh legs. And I think everyone, including himself, they were looking at this international break as a key moment for this club in this 2019 season. As let's get back together, let's catch our breath, let's get our legs back, and then let's go play the way that we know how to play. Now, they have to show that now, because then anyone will have the excuse of saying, well, they don't have fresh legs yet. And he was very detailed on how that'll change. When I asked him after the Philadelphia game just about the midfield kind of struggling a little bit, he would go into these like really detailed aspects of the game that where when Remedi or Darlington are receiving balls from Parkhurst or Miles Robinson, and they're facing their own goal, their touch, they need to be sharper. Their touch isn't there yet. The decision making isn't quick enough. And it wasn't in this, a criticism. It was just like, that's just how it is. That is the way that position is played in this system in a 3-4-3. They have a lot of weight on their shoulders. They're going to be receiving those types of balls throughout the game from their center backs. And in this, now this league, MLS knows, any league really, but they know, let's crowd that midfield for Atlanta United. Let's make them play out of tight spaces. And so they're dealing with all that. But he added the other layer of, and they're tired. And it's true. If you're tired, you can't think fast enough. So I'm really anxious to see how fresh and how sharp this team looks against Columbus, considering that this is what they were all pointing towards.
Yeah, that's the conundrum, because I think for a guy like Eric Remedi, for Darlington Nagbe, absolutely. They had a lot of rest last week. You're back in a pretty normal training week this week. They should look fresher. They should look sharper. A guy like Miles Robinson, played a couple different times, not 90 minutes each one, but a couple different matches with the U23s. You've got travel across the Atlantic as well. Andrew Carlton would be somebody that you would think could replace Pity Martinez if needed, and he did the same with the US U20s and looked really good doing it. Mm-hmm. You're going to have a lot of guys who are rested, but not everybody, and that's where it could be a little bit of a weird match. Now, Columbus is dealing with the same stuff. Columbus watched Jossie Zardes play a lot of minutes. Does he get the start on Saturday night? Will Trapp, who I think is Columbus's most important player, I don't think they have a like-for-like replacement, and I thought it really showed against Philadelphia. He played in both games for the U.S. Last year, I remember specifically the match up there right before the World Cup break was coming off of internationals, and Will Trapp played a lot for the U.S., captained the U.S., was straight into the lineup for Greg Berhalter with the Crew, and was dragging. And I thought Atlanta United exploited it in the middle of the field. I wonder if Caleb Porter might try to figure out a way to mitigate that on Saturday.
Yeah, we talk a lot about the caginess of the first 10, the first 15 of any soccer match, really, of any big game, or just sometimes it could be a intramural. My over 30 league. Sometimes we're cagey in the first 10. It doesn't matter. But I think that this game, coming up on Saturday, could be that type of match because of what you just mentioned, Jason. A lot of guys. And coaches knowing that, okay, this guy is, they're looking at the data, they're crunching the numbers, he's at 75%, he's at 85%. Well, this guy's at 100%, we're good to go. But the entire 11 may not be at the same level for both teams. And, and it might be sloppy. It might be a little bit sloppy, might be slow, might be methodical. And both coaches, like you said, looking at certain areas of the pitch where they start to see an opening, a weakness, because this isn't game 27. It's like the fifth or fourth game. It's like that. They're still at that stage, and coming out of the international break. This could be a match that this to me sounds like a 0-0, 1-0 type of match. It could be much. I could be completely wrong, but just based on this type of the factors and the different data that may be at play with tired legs, travel, and whatnot, we may see that type of match on Saturday.
And then you've got I guess in a situation like that, with this caginess coming off of international break, then I guess that adds importance to folks like a Michael Parkhurst, like a Jeff Lorenowitz, like possibly a Breck Shea, not knowing the health of a Franco Escobar or a George Bello. I think those veteran guys who got to kind of catch their wind a little bit, maybe just as vital, if not more so, coming into a match like this with that international wild card coming in. I mean, to me, that would be just what I'm thinking.
It might not be what Felipe's thinking, because I think we lost him. So
I was going to say, wait a minute.
Yeah, Felipe did not want to take your question, and he hung up. So, thanks, Felipe, for joining us. We appreciate it. Felipe's a busy man. He could have had a hot scoop that he had to hop on. So we'll catch up with Felipe
again next week. He just harumphed on my question. That's all. He
absolutely did. We're going to take a break here while we try to see what happened there. and we'll come back and wrap up hour number 1 right after this. Stay with us.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Every hiring manager knows that a company is only as good as the people it's made from. So where do you find the best people? That may surprise you.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
This is talent worth knowing about.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
All right, it took some convincing after Felipe left on John's question, but we've talked him back in. He's here, and John's going to try this again with that question.
This is like the encore, right? It's the encore. I love
the
stage, and then I heard the applause, and I
yes,
that's
the Felipe Cardenas encore, where you come up with one of your greatest hits that everybody will sing along to and run the flashlights and sit there and lay out for the second verse. But what I was getting at, and I'm hoping I can get through the question so technology won't just scoff at me, is that I think in a match like this, having those veteran guys on the roster, like a Parkhurst, like a Big Red, like a Breck Shea, can possibly help you grind through this result with everyone that wasn't there. And to have that veteran presence, I think, helps on a match like Columbus.
Yeah, it absolutely does. When I talked to Brad Guzan recently, and I did that piece on him for the Athletic Soccer, he's so candid and he's so outspoken. He's a true professional, true leader. I think he has a lot of detractors, and he has his fans. You can tell, by the chant that you hear at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. But he talked about that. We talked about rotation a little bit. It didn't really make the piece because it wasn't really part of the plot in the end. But he did mention specifically that guys like himself, Jeff Lorenowitz, and Michael Parkhurst have had conversations among themselves, about what it means to, potentially play in a match and then 10 days later not play. And not just for themselves, but like for guys that may not be accustomed to start making the starting lineup and what that means. Guys have to be ready, like the way that they prepare. How do you train? How do you keep training at a level where, you expect to see your name in the starting 11, but you may not be playing for the next 10 days. And so I think that's new for this team, for the veterans to not be, always locked in as part of that first 11. I think they know that. I think they know that that's where this club is moving. That's what this season might bring. And so, this game on Saturday is one of those moments where, they could be depended on. I think we'll see. Obviously Michael Parkhurst will more than likely start. Obviously Brad Guzan's going to be there. Jeff Lorenowitz, as well. I would not be surprised to see him in the starting 11. And there are guys that have to, bring the younger guys, the Carltons, even a guy like Miles Robinson, who has to, now become accustomed to being a starting level center back in MLS. And something that Brad told me, I'll say quickly, is that, this is what he said. He was like, it's one thing to be the guy in USL. It's one thing to be the guy when you go to your U20 team or your youth national team. And it's quite another to do it at the MLS level, when you're playing against men and when you're playing against the guys that are, fighting for a roster spot, fighting for a contract, fighting for a new deal. And he attributed that to what he saw in England, where, under 21 goalkeepers that were good enough, weren't getting games, and they'd go down and play at that level. And he's like, it's just not the same. You're playing with guys your own age. You're not playing with men. So this is going to be part of the process for Atlanta United in 2019. To your point, John, veteran players that even when they're not playing and they're sitting on the bench, they're still coaching these guys up and letting them know that, this team, really depends on them, whether they're starting every game or not.
Yeah, I feel like you survived the hardest part of your schedule. Now, you're going to have another segment coming up here in May where schedule and travel gets really tricky. But now that you've been through it once and you've got, I think, some time to recover, you should be in a better position to handle it. How important is, you mentioned the depth early on when we started talking this morning. It's been a big part of Atlanta United's roster build. How important is that depth going to be in a match like this? Is there someone that we haven't seen much of that you think could factor in a big way Saturday?
Well, it could be a guy like Romario Williams. Look at his form lately. He looks like he's ready to go. He looks like he wants to suit up and play for Atlanta United for the first team. And I think it's almost as if USL is starting to look easy for him. And I think that bodes well for Atlanta United. They can rest. I don't think they're going to rest Joseph Martinez, but they can if they want, or they can pair him up and play with two strikers up front. And you have two different types of strikers that can finish. Romario Williams is a finisher. So, he's a guy that I think can really push his way into more playing time for Atlanta United moving forward.
Yeah, it's a good shout. Romario looked really good on the weekend with the twos. Felipe, I know you got to run. Thanks so much for the time. Thanks for reconnecting after John's question offended you. We appreciate it.
As always, my friends. As always. Great talking to you guys.
Talk to you again soon. Thanks, Felipe.
Take care.
And we're going to get ready for our number 2. We've got lots of Thursday thoughts to get into. We've got lots of Thursday thoughts. At least I have lots of Thursday thoughts about the MLS schedule coming up. It's a busy weekend, and the game that might be the most important of the weekend is probably not the one you're expecting it to be. It's that kind of season early on in Major League Soccer. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back after this.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA is a national nonprofit working to transform youth and high school sports so that every child has a positive character-building youth sports experience. PCA provides live and online workshops to train double-goal coaches whose first goal is winning and whose second, more important goal is teaching life lessons through sports. PCA also has workshops for parents and high school student-athletes. For more information, please visit positivecoach.org.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. This cat makes me make art. He's always motivating me to draw pictures of him. He just is motivating artistically. He's my best friend, but a lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
Keyboard Cat, YouTube star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Start yours today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Welcome back. Hour number 2, Soccer Down Here, March 28th. It's a Thursday. The weekend in Major League Soccer gets started tomorrow night with Toronto and NYC, and that's an important game. But the game of the weekend, and you would have never guessed this after week 1 or week 2, it is Cincinnati hosting Philadelphia. The reason why is if Cincinnati wins, and you probably consider them the favorite here, if they win, that would give FC Cincinnati the best ever start through 5 matches for an MLS expansion team. Best ever. I thought they were trash, John. What happened? I thought they were a joke and they didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah. Oh, I know, because they had all the center mids, didn't they?
Oh, they do. But they found a way to make it work.
Playing like a 1-1-8-1.
Hey, I'll completely admit I was worried about Alan Koch struggling to settle on a shape. He kept moving it around in preseason, and he moved it before the game in Seattle, and it looked bad in Seattle. Well, his moves paid off, and he's gotten it right. And, you know, it's a simplified way to play. You're good on the counter. You are good defensively. You have a guy like Kendall Waston, but then when Waston's away on international duty, you bring Forrest Lasso into the group, and it's fine. Nick Hagland's a rock. You have good players in the middle of the field to hold things down. And then you get a player like Kenny Safe, and you're dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And for those who follow this sort of advice for information purposes only, right now, according to Bet365, for your full-time result, one team or the other winning, FC Cincinnati's at plus 130, Philadelphia Union is at plus 200. Your draw or Philadelphia Union is at minus 163. And if you had the draw or FC Cincinnati option, you're at minus 250.
A couple other nuggets from around the league. Chicago, Nicolas Gaitan will have his first training session with the Chicago Fire this morning. He'll be introduced officially at an afternoon press conference. Not sure how fast he will jump into the team, but I'm with Bobby Warshaw and Matt Doyle on the fact that I think Gaitan coming in will allow them to finally move Bastian Schweinsteiger to the back line and play 3 in the back and let Schweinsteiger be that sweeper who can step up if he sees a need and can really control the game from a deeper position. That's what he said he's more comfortable with. Gaitan gives you a better player going forward. I wonder if you're good enough defensively to take full advantage, and that's not just on Schweinsteiger. I just worry about this team defensively. I still don't think you've truly figured out what you're doing at goalkeeper. Gaitan should make them better, though, and I think he'll definitely make them more entertaining to watch.
Yes. And Bridgeview needs all the help it can get right now getting butts in the seats. And you're looking at one of those catalysts that you hope can do that, but the Red Bulls are a tall order. And I don't know if it's going to happen immediately out of the blocks, but it may over time. But I'm looking at Chicago still having to claw their way up out of the bottom of the table when it comes to life in the East right now.
So the Fire get the Red Bulls coming to town for a Saturday afternoon matchup. The Red Bulls, I have questions. They struggled against Orlando, which should raise some alarm bells.
Yes.
But one thing that the Red Bulls do well is they attack down the flanks. Every single one of their goals this season, all 5 in MLS play, have come from crosses. You look at Chicago out wide, you're talking about Jorge Corrales, Daniel Campos, not outside backs that scare you. So that matchup is going to be difficult. Now, can Chicago, especially as Schweinsteiger drops deeper, Can they play through the Red Bulls press? Not many teams have. Orlando didn't even try because they were smart enough to not do that. There was a great breakdown of the match at a website called Football Bloody Hell, which is one of the greatest names out there. And they cited the statistic that Orlando played long a quarter of the time. So they were completely fine with just lumping it over the top and resetting. Didn't work until Dom Dwyer came in. His hold-up play gave you some outlets. It had a big hand in getting your one goal. But New York, Chicago, I think New York can hurt Chicago out wide. Can Chicago hurt New York down the middle? That's the question that I just don't know yet. I think Red Bulls go in there and get a result.
Yeah, I'm looking at something perhaps 2-0-ish when it comes to Red Bulls over Chicago. I just don't see it out of the fire right now. I see no fire in the fire.
So let's go to the Lions of Orlando. They play Sunday. They are on FS1 in a pretty big game, honestly. It's Orlando hosting DC United, the Manchester United reunion of Wayne Rooney and Nani. And here's something that really grabbed my attention when I read it this morning. So Orlando trained yesterday, and Nani spoke to the media. He told reporters that he called a meeting of the players before the match, and Sasha Kleshin had mentioned it, I think, after the match, but not in any detail. Nani said this yesterday to the reporters at the training session. I feel I needed to do that to show all the players that we need to be together. We need to focus more on our objectives. We knew that game will be hard for us because the last games we did well, but I think the concentration on the little details was the key of the results. We knew we had to improve on the situation. The focus and mentality were one of the points we had to focus more. I think that meeting was good for all the players so they can understand what we want, what our targets are, and it was good. That's the type of stuff you did not have last year. And it showed. It showed in the performances. It showed in the way the team acted on the field. You didn't have leadership. It's a little surprising that it's Nani coming in, and it's not surprising that it's Nani, but it's surprising that he sees that so quickly that this team needs it, and he steps up and does it. It's not something that you really associated with him in the past. But if Nani becomes that leader for this team, and guys like Kleshin and Dwyer and Will Johnson, veterans in this league, accept it and work with it, it's going to be interesting in Orlando. I still don't think they're good enough defensively. And the 5-4-1 that they played against New York, is that going to give you enough going forward on a regular basis? I don't think so. It does give Nani and Sasha Kleshin free roles because, it's a 5-4-1, but Nani and Kleshin aren't exactly playing like wingers. They're pretty free to drift in, drift out, go find the game. That can be dangerous. If Dom Dwyer can get back to form, that can be dangerous. I still don't know what you do with Josue Coleman in this shape. I don't know if this is what James O'Connor is going to do on a regular basis. Those questions are still there. But if you get some leadership out of Nani, this is a different team. And this is a much more dangerous team. And the fact that they went to Red Bull Arena and got a win says that you need to keep an eye on what's going on with Orlando.
And I think that after week one, I think it was easy for us to sit there and say that Orlando might be better than we anticipated and some other teams might be worse. But to have this kind of leadership going in, and it almost seemed like James O'Connor was shocked in trying to do a post-match interview where he was winning. And you could tell he was trying to figure out what to say after a win because I think that both he and Brad Friedel are both 3-12-5 in their last 20.
They both won 3 times. I can't remember if O'Connor's actually had 20 games, but yeah, roughly they've been about the same. Friedel started out hot last year, but then faded, and O'Connor just hasn't been there the whole time. So
no, but no, I think that. But to the point, I think that Orlando might be better, and when you have this kind of veteran leadership this early, sit there and see things 3-dimensionally and go, okay, hey, we need to lock things down. I think that it speaks a lot about having someone like Nani there, and where Orlando could be, because you look at that roster and you sit there and you go, okay, well, why aren't you better? And then there are a bunch of intangibles as to why. But to have someone like Nani come in there and circle the wagons and sit there and go, look, y'all, to do A, B, C, D, and E, we've got to be all on the same page. I think it speaks well about Nani himself taking that role for Orlando and what Orlando could possibly be.
No, Orlando is better, flat out. There's no question on that.
Yeah.
You're 4 games in, you've lost once. They're better. Yeah. And Nani's leadership is going to be a big reason why. They're still not where they should be defensively, and that's going to be an issue going forward. They've conceded 6 goals this season in 4 matches. They're 2 points off the top in the Eastern Conference. I mean, you're just a handful of games in, so don't jump to any conclusions there. But they're a better team. They're a more dangerous team. I still don't know exactly what they're all about yet, and we'll just have to see if O'Connor can get some continuity and figure some of these things out as they go. But the fact that you're getting a leader stepping up is a big development, because I think that was the foundation of the issues last year. Now, there were bigger issues in terms of talent in certain parts of the field and things like that, but you didn't have any leadership, and it showed far too often. Now, if Nani's going to be that guy, that's a huge development for this team going forward. Couple other bits of news around the league. Abear, the new forward for NYCFC, he is still waiting on his visa to join the team. So very unlikely you're going to see him tomorrow against Toronto. How does NYCFC approach that match? Because you would expect to see Alejandro Pozuelo in the lineup for the Reds. Lots of good things being said about Pozuelo coming in. Lots of excitement in Toronto around this. I'm curious to see what Michael Bradley has in the tank for tomorrow night, coming back from national team duty. Is he going to start? Is he going to be as effective as he has been so far this season? I do want to see long-term what Toronto does when it comes to Bradley, Jonathan Osorio, Marky Delgado, and Pozuelo. Does Pozuelo play in a different position than where he generally has, which is as a number 10? Or does he push probably Delgado into a different position or out of the lineup? And if Marky Delgado is available, he's a guy that I think would have a pretty high demand in the league if Toronto made the decision that Bradley, Osorio, Pozuelo is the way you want to play in the middle of the park.
And I think that, I want to see really where Bradley is. I mean, is Bradley in the 18? Does he give you 30 coming in the 60th? Are you going to put him out there to start? Knowing that this match against NYCFC can get you, the opportunity for full points, knowing what they're capable of doing at BMO. And I want to see what it looks like. And I know I'm going to give Toronto probably another month or so with Pozuelo coming in to see what it's going to look like and see where they are. But I think that, this matchup against NYC, I think that you can grind out a result. I don't know if it's going to be fully positive, but I think that you can grind something out there at BMO this weekend.
All right, we'll finish with a pretty cool point. Remember last year when fans were throwing beers at Nick Raimondo in the playoffs, LAFC and Real Salt Lake? And the game got stopped a couple times, and it was a mess. Raimondo tweeted about it. I mean, he was funny afterwards. He tweeted something about offering suggestions about what kinds of beer he would have rather had thrown at him. That he would have.
If you're going to throw it at me, at least give me something that I can do with it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he could have done something with all of it, but he was making requests on better beers to be thrown at him. And the LAFC Supporters Union did something pretty cool, and this is according to the LA Times' Kevin Baxter. When RSL was in town this weekend, leaders from the group, I think it was 5 guys, went to Nick Raimondo, went to the hotel, and brought him 2, I think, 16-ounce cans of local craft beer and apologized for the incidents last year. Very cool, because that stuff's ridiculous, and it doesn't need to happen, and it can lead to more stupidity, as we've seen around the world here lately. So
Yes.
Very cool that LAFC is getting this under control. Their supporters groups are understanding that this is not where we want to be and making good on it and having a good laugh about it. So I am constantly, when I watch games from Banc of California, it sounds great. It looks great. It definitely feels different than a lot of the venues in the league. If it can stay there and not get to what we saw in that playoff match, it would be amazing, and it's a great thing for the league. So hopefully this is a good sign that everything is back in check. Let's take a break here. Let's talk CONCACAF Nations League next. The U.S. knows who it will be playing in the fall. We know what leagues A, B, and C look like. We'll give you the breakdown right after this.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Every hiring manager knows that a company is only as good as the people it's made from. So where do you find the best people? That may surprise you.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
This is talent worth knowing about.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, March 28th, Thursday Thoughts edition. We've got some thoughts on CONCACAF Nations League. If you don't know what this is yet, we saw it play out in UEFA. CONCACAF is following that. The idea is to give more teams competitive matches where you would normally have just friendlies, have a little more on the line. So when it was announced, you had to have a qualifying phase initially just to get everybody sorted out. Your teams that were in the last hex for World Cup qualifying, they were already in League A, in the top flight. Everybody else had to play 4 matches, and things were divided out by the FIFA rankings as well. All went down. So yesterday you had the draw, and it was kind of weird because everybody had said it was going to be on YouTube, and it was on YouTube, just not in the United States because Flow FC had the exclusive rights to show the draw in English. However, Univision Deportes had the rights to have it in Spanish. It was a little late, so people who were watching on Flow FC were spoiling it for everybody because they were like a group ahead. So, and they didn't know that.
And then
Univision Deportes. Well, yeah, for some people. We don't know if it crashed for everybody, so let's not spread any blasphemous rumors out there. We know some people said that it crashed. We don't know if it crashed for everybody. Sometimes that can be user error, too. Anyway, I did not pay the $150 for the year or $30 a month for Flow FC, so I was watching Univision Deportes translate into Spanish. You could hear the English audio, but they translated it into Spanish. So League C, which is the bottom, the way this is going to work is the group winners from League C will get promoted into League B. The bottom place teams in each group in League B will get relegated to League C. The top teams in each group in League B will get promoted to League A. League A has 12 teams, 4 groups of 3, and the winners of the groups will go on to a semifinal and a final to be held in March of 2020. The bottom place teams in the group will get relegated to League B. So, League C, I mean, the one that is in there that probably shouldn't be is Guatemala. They've had a number of issues at the federation level. I think that played a part in them being bumped into League C to start things off. They're in a group with Puerto Rico and Anguilla. They should get out of that pretty easily. Our hopes for Saint Martin, and according to the Univision Deportes announcers, Saint Martin Francés and Saint Martin Hollandés, they were not in the same group. There was a chance. It came down to the U.S. Virgin Islands and Saint Martin Hollandés, and the U.S. Virgin Islands were the 4th team in Group A. Saint Martin Hollandés ended up in Group D. You have 3 groups of 3 teams, 1 group of 4 in League C because of the odd number. League B, the interesting things there, you have Jamaica, who's been a Gold Cup finalist the last 2 editions. They're in a group with Guyana, who was in the Gold Cup this time for the first time around. So you're going to have Andre Blake and Corey Burke from the Philadelphia Union against Warren Creval of Guyana. So union on union crime there, which will be interesting. Those are your top 2 teams in that group. Antigua and Barbuda and Aruba are your other 2 teams there. El Salvador should get out of theirs and get promoted. They're in with the Dominican Republic, St. Lucia, and Montserrat, although Montserrat surprised some people. Group A is kind of wide open. French Guiana, St. Kitts and Nevis, Belize, Grenada are all in it. Don't really know if there's a clear-cut favorite there. Group D, you'd probably think, just based off past form, St. Vincent and the Grenadines are the top team coming in. Nicaragua, Suriname, and Dominica round out that group. So that's your lower divisions, and you're going to see teams move up and down. League A is where it gets interesting, where it gets a little spicy. So Group D is Costa Rica, Haiti, and Curacao. Costa Rica should be fine there, although Haiti has been known to pull some surprises. Curacao is in the Gold Cup this time around, kind of a true unknown. You don't know what they're going to throw at you here. Group C, I think, is the most competitive. Martinique, Trinidad and Tobago, and Honduras. That's a toss-up. Honduras has been the best team maybe over the last decade out of the group, but that generation has gotten older. Can Trinidad build on what they did to the U.S. to knock them out? They did make the Hex for the first time in a while as well. And Martinique is one of those that doesn't qualify for the World Cup. And when you get into the Gold Cup, sometimes they can pull some surprises. So Group C is a toss-up for me. Group B, it's Mexico, Panama, Bermuda. Should be a pretty easy cakewalk for Mexico, you would think. Yeah, Bermuda, they're in the Gold Cup for the first time around, so you have to kind of keep an eye on what their development has been over the last decade or so. Are they ready to compete with the rest of CONCACAF? They used to back in the day. They haven't in a long time. Can they now? We'll see. And their best chance would probably be to pull an upset on Panama and stay up in League A. Group A is where the U.S. is slotted in, and they got a draw that Bartimus Prime was hoping for on Twitter in terms of travel and wanting to go to games. They get Canada, so we get meaningful U.S.-Canada matches for the first time in a while, which is exciting. And they get Cuba, which last time the U.S. played a friendly in Cuba, the field was horrendous. Don't know if it'll be much better. But that's a very interesting trip at this stage in the current political climate that we see.
Yes.
So, USA, Canada, Cuba are the matches that the national team will play in October and November in the qualifying window, or in the international windows. So, don't know the exact dates, don't know times and places just yet, but you can go ahead and pencil those in. CONCACAF Nations League is going to be fun. There's some interesting matches in all the leagues. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, and for me, Obviously there are a lot of cool stories in each league, and then you look in groups and things. Obviously, Frances and Hollandaise for me, that was the top story coming out of League C, and you want to see where they progress. And then you have the League B storylines that you went into with the Philadelphia Union and Montserrat in Group B. I want to see what they're up to. Can they continue their momentum there? And the spiciness in some of the groups in League A and what they could be, when you come up with the full fours. But as of right now, the spiciness for me in Group C, and then the spiciness on multiple levels in Group A, where you have politics and rivalries and all that kind of stuff. It's going to be, you sit there and you wag your finger at Group A and go, man, all right. So thanks for that, but it's going to be a fun watch. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, CONCACAF Nations League, I think this is a good thing for the Confederation. I will be watching a lot of games on Univision Deportes. I will be continuing to work on my Spanish, and I would love to watch them in English, but it's just too
everyone
much
else. Yeah, I will continue to have it down in Office HD and have it as loud as humanly possible, and draw confusing looks from everyone else in the SDH office as to what I'm actually watching.
Yeah, Gwen's pretty fired up. She likes to change the channel on the TV to Spanish language. It's kind of strange. I don't know where this started with her, but she jumps on the remote and it ends up on Univision or Univision Deportes, and this has been a consistent thing. So Gwen's excited about CONCACAF Nations League in Spanish. She's pumped up, as you can hear, but. Yes. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's a really good thing for the Confederation as a whole to have more games that have some meaning to them. I mean, for the smaller countries, obviously, it's good because it's going to help them grow. But even for the U.S. in this, what's better for the United States after the Gold Cup? Is it to play friendlies against an Ecuador that has no interest in playing? There's nothing on the line. You're just playing a match to play a match. Or to play a match against Cuba and Canada, who would love nothing more than to upset you.
Uh-huh.
And a Canada team that is not that bad and has a lot of young talent coming through. For a Canada, it's potentially game-changing because they get real games here instead of just meaningless friendlies against countries that nobody really wants to play Canada right now because they've been bad lately. Now, you get meaningful games. You get a home and away with the U.S. Those are going to be epic. It's going to be big crowds. It's going to be exciting. We've seen it on the women's side with that rivalry. I'd love to see the men's rivalry get back to where it used to be. I'm excited about it. I'm really looking forward to it. We're going to take a break here. Joe Patrick is held up. Training has been pushed back for Atlanta United, and he's got some work to do. So we're going to try to get him on before the end of the show. If we can't, we're going to try to reschedule and get him on tomorrow. But we'll get into the Twitter timeline, Thursday Thoughts. If you guys have some questions, throw them at us now on Twitter at SoccerDownHere, and we'll get into them next. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Every hiring manager knows that a company is only as good as the people it's made from. So where do you find the best people? That may surprise you.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
This is talent worth knowing about.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, Thursday, March 28th. Getting ready for Atlanta United and the Columbus Crew this weekend. It's a 7:30 kickoff. You can watch on Fox Sports Southeast. You can listen on 92.9 The Game. Mike Conti and I will be live at 7 o'clock with the Five Stripes Countdown, and we'll be on Atlanta United's social media channels at around 6:30 with the lineup announcement and the AT&T countdown to kickoff. Before we get there, there's a bunch of games, and we've talked about a few of them. Let's look at a couple that we haven't, and let's start with New England and Minnesota. So yesterday, over to MLSsoccer.com, Sam Stajkal posted an article, conversation that he had with Brad Friedel. And it's kind of the same stuff that we've been hearing. So after the match, we played a little bit of the audio from the match, and we talked about some of the quotes that came out afterwards. And, you know, one of them was the two halves were completely different. You had one half that we probably had 5 or 6 players that lacked any kind of desire to work. That's a problem. That's a problem with a manager who's been there for over a year now. So Friedel talked to Stajkal and gave him the interview Tuesday night after all this. So he expanded a little bit, and here's the expanded thoughts from Brad Friedel about what's going on. Whenever we have to talk about effort with the players and not tactics or technical abilities, the very first thing that comes to mind is what can we do better as a staff in order to ensure that all the players are fighting fit for the day. In any soccer match around the world, first and foremost, you have to match or better the intensity of the other team, and then hopefully your technical abilities and your creativity in the attacking end and a little bit of luck goes your way. But the bare minimum would be the effort. That's the easiest thing, and that's the most controllable aspect of an individual performance. And when that doesn't happen, we take it on board personally and we blame ourselves as a staff. That helps. I mean, that's better because it came out a little bit like throwing the players under the bus after the game. And look, I get the frustration. They haven't progressed to where I thought they would be, and I'm not in the room every day. I'm not watching this team train. I thought just with the talent they have that they would be better. They haven't been. It doesn't look like it's changing. Now, you have potentially players being added, but Friedel talked more about that, and it's the same stuff. I mean, they have a guy. It sounds like it's all done. He wants to come. Everything is agreed upon. It's just getting him out of the club that he's in. And we've talked about it a lot. After you get past the January window, it's really hard to get guys from Europe if they're playing, if they're in a club where they're needed, because they can't be replaced at that club. Now, the MLS window is still open until early May. Maybe things change with whoever this player is in their club situation. You know, if the club is trying to avoid relegation and they're safe and they're in mid-table and the last few games don't really mean anything, maybe they let the player go early. And Friedel can get him in at the beginning of May and get integrated. Maybe not. You might not have to wait till the summer window. So that's all about where we expect it to be. New England, I mean, with what you've seen of them, John, do you think it is strictly down to effort? And, if it is, how do you fix that?
See, all right, so let me take this two separate ways. My short answer is no, I think it's more than effort, because there are times when they're out there and they're almost trying too hard, especially if they're trying to salvage a point, and also if they're trailing. And it looks like some of the things are forced. Sometimes they look like they're almost confused as to what they need to do if they're even or if they're trailing, and if they have to do something that lasts 15 to 20 minutes. I don't know where their offense is going to come from. I think that teams defensively have pretty much figured out New England after the first handful of matches in the season. And for me, I'm wondering what you can do with the talent that is there to try to put the ball in the back of the net. And I don't see this particular group of guys scoring a whole lot of goals. And I don't know if that just comes down to individual effort, trying to get something done, or if it has to do with philosophy and trying to figure out how to work their way around the defenses that have been thrown at them so far. They just look like they're trying to find ideas. And when you're searching, especially when you're frustrated, you have the tendency to search too hard. And I think that if New England found a way just to, dial it back a little bit, simplify things, and then rebuild from there, I think that there might be something going on. But right now, I think that there's a litany of issues with New England, and you have to figure out which one you want to tackle first. And if you're Friedel and you think it's effort, and then the interview with Sam Stejko, you sit there and you say, okay, it might be on us as a coaching staff. Maybe as a coaching staff, you do have to simplify things, dial things back a step or two, and then rebuild it and sit there and say, okay, how can we best look at the guys we've got, put them in positions of strength to where we can score and put ourselves in position to come out of there with full points?
I'm a little more skeptical of the effort thing, just because I don't know what this team's identity is right now. And I don't think it's the players trying too much. I don't think there's a clear and obvious identity. And it was something else that Friedel mentioned to Stejko about, last year the team was known as a pressing team. And he said a lot was made last year of us being a pressing team. Yes, I like to press, but it doesn't mean I like to always press all over the field. If you look at the history of where I played and where I learned, attacking was a big part of all those clubs. Stylistically, I would like our teams to always be looking for that gap to go forward and create the overloads, create the space, be able to get in areas to score. Thus far in our first 4 games, we've been okay in the second half looking to score. We still haven't scored a goal at home. Away from home, we've looked pretty solid. Going forward with this team, I would like to be able to control the tempo much better, go forward more, not so much get into track meets, if you like, but when we do, we want to attack quickly. The problem is none of that really defines an identity, and that's where I can understand if you have players who look like they're not putting forth the effort, but some of it is coming from confusion as to the message.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's the case. Again, we're not there, and you're talking with a small sample size this year. Their 1.24 expected goals per game is the 7th lowest in the league. They're not creating chances. They're not really, converting anything through the middle of the field. They are really not doing much with their crossing game. I don't know what they're trying to do necessarily, and that's the problem. You have talent. I think when you look at an attacking group that can include Carlos Gil, who's been good. 3 goals so far in 4 games. He's been creative. He's leading the team in chances created. He has lived up to everything you ask for. Christian Penilla hasn't been as effective as he was last year, although he has created a lot of chances. his speed is something you have to account for. You'd expect him to get going again. Teal Bunbury has been that solid hard worker that you generally expect. Is he spectacular? No. Can he be effective? Yes. Diego Fagundes, we heard the talk coming into the season. He wanted to leave. He hasn't left. He hasn't looked good at all this season. Juan Fernando Caicedo, the Colombian, added to the team up top. He's played 31 minutes so far, so we don't really know what he's going to be just yet. Justin Renix, the young American forward homegrown signing, has played 45 minutes. He hasn't really done anything yet. Juan Agudelo has played 143 minutes, 2 starts, 1 off the bench. He hasn't looked good so far. He's an absolute enigma because he's one of the most talented players in the country, but doesn't play very much, and we don't know why. I don't know what this team is supposed to be on the field. So if they're not going to press, they want to play fast, but they don't want to get into track meets. They want to create chances, but how are you going to create those chances? There's just so many questions. I think right now, if you want to get things simplified, you've got holding midfielders in Zahibo, in Luis Caicedo, and Scott Caldwell. You've got a lot of options there. You get that part done. You protect the back line better. Mancian, you're paying him to be a stud in this league. You have to expect him to be a stud in this league. And if he's not, then you deal with that later. But you have to expect him to be that. De La Mea is a decent center back, and he's fine. Edgar Castillo was one of the best left backs in the league last year. You went out and you got him from Colorado. You got the deal done with Monterrey to bring him in. You would expect him to be better than he has been. He hasn't been bad. He hasn't been good. Brandon Bai is a bit of a project on the right side. I think he has all the potential, but you know what you're dealing with there. So, okay, you should be decent defensively with all that. You haven't been. You should have the attacking talent to create more chances. You haven't been. I think you have to nail down what your identity is. Yeah. I think you play through Carlos Gil. I think he's your number 10 in a very free role. You have a couple guys behind him to do the defensive work and protect the back line. And you figure out what your best group is in your front 3 or 4. I think Gil is one of them. Is it Bunbury? Is it Agudelo? Is it Fagundes? Is it Juan Fernando Caicedo? Is it Agudelo? What is it? And you go with Pania. Where does he factor in? He's good out wide. I think you need to get Gil and Pania as your 2 best attacking players into the positions where they can help you the best, and you work from there. Now, if that means Agudelo sits on the bench, if it's the best for the team, then it's the best for the team. I don't know how you haven't gotten more out of him, but you're at a point now where you've got to play through your best players, and I think it's Gil, and I think it's Pania. I think those are the 2 guys that can scare the opposition, so we'll see what they can do. The reason we talk about the Revs a lot is that's Atlanta's next opponent. Now, the Revolution have a home game with Minnesota this weekend, and then they go to Columbus, which will be interesting. Atlanta's getting this a lot. So Atlanta plays Columbus this weekend. Atlanta's off next weekend. Columbus then hosts New England. Then Atlanta goes to New England. So you're going to get a nice little basis for comparison here, and we'll see if Brad Friedel can make any progress in these next 2 weeks. Because it looked really bad against Cincinnati. And Cincinnati, I think, adjusted to the match in front of them pretty well. But as good as Cincinnati looked, New England looked like they didn't even want to play by the end of it. And that's a big problem.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on all of this. And I just, when I look at New England, my natural reaction is to sit there and think that you should be better than you are. But when I look at you, I just shrug my shoulders and I'm like, okay, what in the wide world of sports is going on here? And I have far more questions than answers. And I think that for New England, they got to figure things out. Otherwise, it's going to be a very, very ugly year up there. And more people will continue to be empty seats, and the tarps may be the number 1 fans up in Foxborough by the time the season's over, if this continues the way that it does.
This unnamed designated player who Friedel didn't want to say what position he plays, but he hinted pretty strongly that he's going to be an attacking player. who's he going to replace and how much is he going to bring to the table? And, man, you have to really cross your fingers to get him sooner rather than later if you're the New England Revolution right now. Let's take our final break. Joe Patrick is available. We're going to get him on the line to finish things out. We'll get his thoughts as he is at the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground, and we'll get his thoughts on Atlanta's trip to Columbus coming up on Saturday. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Every hiring manager knows that a company is only as good as the people it's made from. So where do you find the best people? That may surprise you.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
This is talent worth knowing about.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Welcome back. Final segment. Soccer Down here, March 28th. We were able to track down our Deion Sanders here in the SDH universe, the multi-sport athlete Joe Patrick. What's up, Joe?
Stop it.
Hey, you can take a helicopter, from an Atlanta United game to a Braves game. You can pull that off now.
I know. Sometimes that's what I feel like I need, especially with baseball. Media starts so early. It starts like 3 hours before the game. It's crazy.
Yeah, you get that lineup card a lot earlier than you do in MLS, don't you?
Yeah, you do. So there's some adjustment going on, but everything's going good.
Cool. Thanks for joining us this morning. I think we did have a Braves question for you real quick.
Let's do it.
Yes, if I'm not mistaken, it came from Joe Boston, and Joe was setting the over-under for wins this year at 87 and wanted to know what your basic thoughts were. Oh, it's from Caleb Cook, sorry. Caleb Cook wanted to know, how many wins do the Braves have this year? I say A7. The Mets and the Phils got better.
Yeah, that's right around the number I would put it at as well. It's funny because I think that the Vegas number is like 84 or 85, something like that. I think Vegas is a little lower on the Braves than obviously the fans are not here. But yeah, I would go over that Vegas line, and then that 87 number, I think that's right where they're going to be around. I'll take the over. I think they have the pitching depth. They've got so many young arms. They'll survive any catastrophic injuries.
Okay, let me throw another over-under at you. 1.5, the number of goals Atlanta United scores on Saturday. What are you taking?
I'm going to say over. I think that this team, they feel refreshed. When we've been talking to them as media, they just seem a little looser. I think it's coming. I think that a lot of what we've seen and a lot of our perceptions that have been colored to this point in the season, maybe not be the most accurate reflection of what this team is. I think that they will start to get things going offensively. I think they'll get 2 goals. They might concede some in doing so, because I think that that's always the balance you try to strike, especially when you're the manager. Is I think Jonathan Wilson said it in Inverting the Pyramid, which is like the tactics Bible, which is that soccer is all about how you score the most goals and be the most attacking while staying solid on defense. And sometimes it's hard to get that strike that balance right away. So, I say they'll score more than 2 goals, though. Or, I'm sorry, more than 1.5.
More than 1.5.
Let's not go crazy here.
I had to have the teaser in there for you. Had to make you make a decision so you couldn't go push.
There you go. So then when you're characterizing this match with Columbus, how are you looking at it? I mean, a lot of folks are saying must win, got to have full points, those kinds of comments. How do you characterize this match with folks coming back from international break, with players of experience who've had 10 days off? How are you looking at this match as in a points perspective and a growth perspective, I guess?
Right. I'm not. I know fans won't kind of take kindly to this, and I wouldn't expect fans to think the way that I think about this. But I'm still in the mode of let's see the way the team performs. Let's not be worried about the points and the results so far, or what's going to happen coming down the pike here, because really, I think from my perspective, what I've seen, the main complaint from fans this season with this team has been the way the team has played, not necessarily the results. The results haven't been good. I'm not saying that they have, but I think that the main gripe has just been the style that the team has played and the lack of goals that they've scored. So from my perspective, I just want to see this team play better, just play a more attractive brand. If that means they have a 2-2, draw, even if they scored a couple of goals, but they give up a few and they lose the game, obviously we'll have to see how that exactly plays out, but I'm not as concerned with the points at this stage of the season. It's just still so early. The season is so long. We saw the Seattle Sounders last year come from the depths of the Western Conference at the playoff, at the All-Star break, and they made it up. And they had, I believe, they were comfortably in the playoffs. So I don't think people need to freak out about the results yet. I think that most people, myself, will just want to see the performances improve.
Do you think Columbus is a contender in the Eastern Conference?
I think they're kind of in a similar situation to Atlanta, and I would say yes, they are. But I think that they are, they have a new manager. They're trying to do some different things. Caleb Porter, anyone who's kind of followed his career knows that he has a specific way he likes things done, similarly to the way that we've seen from Frank DeBoer here so far this season. He's going to want to implement his system. Sometimes it's looked better than other times so far this season for Columbus, but I think that, they're in transition. And I think they have quality in that team that I believe in. And I do think that they will be contenders for the playoffs. I just think that, like I said, with the quality that they have in key positions, I think that is really what will carry them through. And I think, like with Atlanta, they'll evolve and they'll be one of the teams that gets better over the course of the season, in my opinion.
And then you're looking at a starting 11 that could be interesting depending on folks and travel and international breaks and things like that. What do you, when you're thinking about, obviously, the jogging that you saw this morning plus international break, for an 11/18, what are you looking at here, do you think?
Yeah, we did get to see some mighty fine jogging this morning. We saw Pity Martinez was one of the ones jogging here. He was not training with the rest of the group, so I would not expect him to be part of the squad for this game. I don't think I wouldn't even put him on a flight, but maybe they will. Maybe they'll want him to be around his teammates. But it looks like it's not a super serious injury. Like I said, he was jogging, so that's good. Other than that, we'll talk to Frank DeBoer and ask him, and hopefully get a little bit of clarity on that situation, on who will start the game and who will be in the lineup here in a few minutes. But it'll be interesting with Franco Escobar. He returned. He played with the Twos in their last game, and looked good. It'll be interesting to see if he plays a part, because if he does, he can really change things, because he can force the team to play more comfortably in a back four, or he could play in a back five or back three. So his positioning and his availability for the game will say a lot about how this team is going to play and line up when they roll the ball out there on Saturday.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you was about Escobar. Do you think that, and we talked to Felipe Cardenas earlier, and Felipe was more of the opinion that you don't have to rush him back, and you had a chance, I think you watched the Twos game over the weekend, you had a chance to see Escobar play. Do you think he's ready?
Yeah, I'm with Felipe on that. I would not rush him back, and like I just said, I was talking about earlier with the way this team is evolving and how long the season is, there's no reason. The worst case scenario is you bring him back into a game and he re-injures something, And the good news here is that, he's unlikely to re-injure his collarbone, right? Like that's probably not a risk. But there's a risk of him not having been conditioned properly for the game that he could do something with his lower body, which would be something that is very much not in Atlanta's favor. So I think that, I'm with Felipe. I would not rush him back, but I think that if he is available, I think that means that he's very much fit to play. I think that what we've seen from this team so far is that they're being very careful with injuries. We've seen it with George Bello so far this season, and I don't think they will risk him if they see it as a risk.
And then I guess you could take the same thing and apply it to someone like a Miles Robinson who was getting international play and things like that. So with the season having just turned 10%-ish, knowing how integral Miles has been so far this season, I mean, is he another question for you this weekend, or do you go ahead and put him out there?
I think he's fine. He's young. He's got those fresh legs. We talked to him yesterday. And he said, those guys, they're obviously feeling some fatigue from having had to go through that travel with national team. But we talked to Andrew Carleton, and he's like, yeah, I'm tired, but I'll be ready. I'll be able to play Saturday. I'm young and fresh. I'm not, it doesn't take me as long to kind of recover and get back to full strength as maybe some of the older guys. So I would have no problem putting Miles out there. In fact, I think that he's obviously shown himself to be one of Atlanta's most important players this season. I would be quite worried if he weren't out there. I think that would signal that there is something wrong.
Final one for you, Joe, before we wrap up. Let's go back to Carleton. If you don't have Pity Martinez this weekend, do you think that opens up a potential for Andrew Carleton to get a start?
Potentially, yes, of course. But we asked him yesterday about kind of what his role is with this team under Frank DeBoer, and he said that he's talked to DeBoer, and that DeBoer sees him as a spark off the bench. Those were the words that Carleton told us yesterday. So I think that judging by that, I think that that's an accurate kind of, that's how DeBoer sees the best way to utilize Andrew Carleton. Of course, that doesn't take into account, injuries and things of that nature that we've discussed here. But I think that, that is going to be his primary role. And I think that that's the most likely thing that we'll see from Carleton on Saturday. I would think that he does play in the game, though, for sure.
All right. What do you have coming up over at Dirty South Soccer as you juggle bats and soccer?
Brian Jordan, Deion Sanders, take your pick.
Yeah, we'll have some reports from what the players talk about today. We'll talk to Frank DeBoer, Julian Gressel, and some other player. I don't even remember who it is off the top of my head right now. But
it is not Ronald Acuna.
Also, keep an eye out for one of our sister sites, Stars and Stripes FC. They cover the U.S. national team. We got some stuff yesterday, like I said, from Carleton and Miles Robinson talking about their national team duty, and there will be a post going up at some point over there as well. So I would recommend Atlanta fans go over there and check that one out too. Very
cool. Thanks for the heads up. Make sure you're following J.A. Patrick 200 on Twitter for updates from the training ground when Frank DeBoer speaks to the media at any point this morning. Coming up pretty soon. Thanks, Joe, for jumping on with us. We appreciate it.
Yep, no problem. Thanks for having me on, guys.
No problem. That's it for the day. That's a Thursday Thoughts. We'll be back tomorrow as we get ready for match day. Mike Conti and Doug Robertson will be joining us to get us ready for Atlanta and Columbus. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha plata.